The 2022 Women on Boards indicator achieved an additional milestone, reaching 19.7%, as per the 5th edition of the Women on Boards Annual Monitoring Report, issued by AUC Egypt Women on Boards Observatory. The 2022 Women on Boards indicator reached 19.7%, compared to 16.7% in 2021, increasing by 3% in 1 year. We are 10.3% away from reaching the 2030 target of having 30% women on board. Sustaining the 3% annual increase pattern achieved in the past 3 years will enable all categories to reach the 30% women on board goal by 2026. The number of women on boards progressed positively from 2019 to 2022, with an average annual growth rate of 32.1%. The number of women on boards reached 1,320 in 2022, marking a 26.6% growth rate. An estimated number of 692 women need to be placed on boards of companies and banks in the coming years to meet the 2030 target. 227 women in EGX-listed companies, 44 women in banks, 85 women in public enterprise companies, and 336 women in non-banking financial sector companies are needed to join boards until 2030. The total gap covering the 4 categories followed a declining trend between 2019 and 2022. To achieve the 2030 goal earlier than anticipated, the placement of women on boards has to be accelerated across the 4 categories. The report tracks the representation of women on the boards of EGX-listed companies, the banking sector, the public enterprise sector, and the non-banking financial sector supervised and regulated by the Financial Regulatory Authority, and it identifies the gap to reach the 30% women on board goal by 2030. The non-banking financial sector is still ahead of all other categories, achieving 22% women on boards in 2022. They are the closest to achieving the 30% women on board goal, followed by the Egyptian exchange, the banking sector, and the public enterprise sector. Progress in women on boards representation was achieved across all categories in the 2022 report. The Egyptian exchange women on boards representation almost doubled from 10.1% in 2019 to 17.3% in 2022. The banking sector women on boards representation also increased from 14.8% in 2019 to 16.5% in 2022. The public enterprise sector women on boards representation improved to 9.3% in 2022, compared to 6% in 2019. The non-banking financial sector marked the highest women on boards representation, doubling from 11.2% in 2019 to 22% in 2022. The 2022 distribution of companies and banks by the number of women on boards demonstrated a transformation in structure, observing deviations towards the increase in the number of companies and banks with 1 and 2 women on board. The 2 women on board percentages were boosted between 2021 and 2022 across most categories under study. This shift could be attributed to the effective implementation and alignment with regulators' issued decrees and decisions, necessitating the placement of 2 women on board. The public enterprise sector has the highest percentage of companies with 0 women on board, with 52.4%. The lowest share was realized in the banking sector, with only 8.8%. All 4 categories witnessed a decrease in the number and percentage of companies and banks with 0 women on board. EGX-listed companies with 0 women on board decreased by almost 33.3%, from 53.3% in 2019 to 10.2% in 2022. The percentage of banks with 0 women on board declined dramatically from 26.5% in 2019 to 8.8% in 2022, by almost 2/3 in 4 years. It is the lowest percentage among all categories. The public enterprise companies with 0 women on board decreased by 28%, from 72.5% in 2019 to 52.4% in 2022. The non-banking financial sector with 0 women on board also declined from 58.8% to 15.1% between 2019 and 2022. The banking sector has the highest percentage of banks with at least 1 woman on board in 2022, while the lowest is realized in the public enterprise sector. All categories witnessed progress in the number of companies and banks with at least 1 woman on board. EGX-listed companies with at least 1 woman on board almost doubled between 2019 and 2022, reaching 89.8%. The banking sector had the highest percentage of banks with at least 1 woman on board, reaching 91.2% in 2022, compared to 73.5% in 2019, following a moderate growth rate from 2019 to 2022. The public enterprise sector percentage also increased from 27.5% in 2019 to 47.6% in 2022. The non-banking financial sector percentage significantly increased from 41.3% in 2019 to 84.9% in 2022. The non-banking financial sector acquired the highest percentage of companies with 30% or more of women on board, whereby 25.7% successfully complied with the 30% women on board goal. The number of companies and banks with 30% or more women on board varied across all categories. EGX-listed companies with 30% or more women on board accounted for 10.6% in 2022, compared to 6% in 2019. Banks with 30% or more women on board progressed moderately to 11.8% in 2022, compared to 9% in 2019. Public enterprise companies with 30% or more women on board witnessed fluctuations, reaching 3.7% in 2022, compared to 3% in 2019. The non-banking financial sector companies with 30% or more women on board increased by more than 6-folds between 2019 and 2022, reaching 25.7%. An annual estimate of 86 women needs to be placed on boards of companies and banks to narrow the gap to reach the 2030 target. 28 in the Egyptian exchange, 6 in the banking sector, 11 in the public enterprise sector, and 42 in the non-banking financial sector. The annual gap to reach 30% women on board goal followed a declining trend in all 4 categories, from 113 women in 2019 to 86 women in 2022. Companies and banks must further close this gap and improve board cultures to reflect the national commitment to governance, inclusiveness, and diversity. Egypt Women on Boards Observatory, founded in 2017 by the AUC School of Business, is recognized as a specialized observatory within the National Council for Women framework. It aims to increase the representation of women on corporate boards in Egypt to reach the 30% women on board goal by 2030. Partners of Egypt Women on Boards Observatory bring together government, business associations, research institutions, international organizations, and non-government organizations. Egypt Women on Boards Observatory works with several regional and national networks, including the 30% Club MENA chapter, the Boardroom Africa, Arab International Women Forum, Business Women of Egypt 21, and the Top 50 Most Influential Women Forum. Egypt Women on Boards Observatory compiled an Egyptian board-ready women database of 1,000 qualified women in over 26 economic sectors with diverse areas of expertise and educational background. Women join the database by filling out an online membership application form. Egypt Women on Boards Observatory offers free board placement service to support companies and banks in realizing the benefits of increased diversity and improved corporate governance. Companies across several sectors and banks complete an online board placement request form to receive this service. Egypt Women on Boards Observatory is pleased with the progress made by companies and banks to increase the representation of women on boards. The observatory remains committed to supporting companies and banks in finding qualified women to serve on their boards through the Egyptian Board Ready Women database, which currently includes 1,000 qualified women. 1 woman is a token, 2 is presence, 3 is voice.